How Jerusalem is split between two religions. Let's check it
the
out.
Al-Aqsa compound. This is Jerusalem. To many, it's the holiest city on earth, being at the center of all Abrahamic religions. There's the Western Wall for Judaism, the Al-Aqsa compound.
That's also known as the Weeping Wall, right? Like where Jewish people go to cry. I forgot what. For like all the damage that was done to their city or
for
something.
Islam, and the Church of...
I'm American. Okay, guys, I do not know nothing about Israel, Palestine, the religions. I do not know anything about that. Jerusalem, my geography is off. Okay, so we're trying to get educated.
The Holy
That's it.
Sepulchre for...
We were reacting to Noam Beton, and I was like, wait, let's just check out some more Israeli
Christianity,
wonders.
just to name a few examples.
Get educated.
But for a city so sacred, Jerusalem is also one of the most divided places in the world. And no, not just politically. Take a look at this map of the Old City, where all the religious sites are located. There is a Christian quarter, Jewish quarter, Muslim quarter, and even an Armenian quarter. So how did this one
Wait, so that... The way he's divvying it up, that Temple Mount must be humongous, no?
small walled district, less than half a square mile in size, become the spiritual capital of three religions, divided at the same time? Well, to understand that, we have to go back district, less than half a square...
Wait, so it's just like four different religions all right next to each other in a tiny little space? Bloods, Crips,
mile in size, become the spiritual capital of three religions, and so divided at the same time. Well, to understand that, we have to go back thousands of years, of course, to the moment Jerusalem first became holy. About 3,000 years ago, or around 1000 BCE, is when this story really gets started. At the time, the city was home to the Jebusites, a Canaanite tribe, but soon it was conquered by King David and his forces from the tribe of Judah. The reason for this was a few things. The first was its strategic desirability. Three prominent hills surrounded the city: Mount Moriah, known today as the Temple Mount, the Mount of Olives, and Mount Zion. And these mountains connected to several deep rocky valleys: the Kidron Valley, the Tyropoeon Valley, and the Hinnom Valley. Together, these hills and valleys gave Jerusalem an amazing natural defense system, making it a safe place to rule from. The second was the water. Though Jerusalem is located in an extremely barren region, at the base of the Kidron Valley was the largest freshwater spring in the mountains, the Gihon Springs, which provided a continual supply of water for its residents. And lastly, politically, Jerusalem was centrally located and politically neutral, not belonging to any of the 12 tribes of Israel. So when King David captured Jerusalem, he made it the capital of the United Kingdom of Israel, a loose confederation of the 12 tribes. At least that's how the story goes.
So Israel
A continual supply of water for it. At the base of the Kidron Valley was the largest freshwater spring in the mountains, the Gihon, centrally located. United Kingdom of water sources. Some people will say certain events never happened, that this or that is just the biblical narrative and not an actual academic one. And that's okay. But to understand Jerusalem's significance, then we have to look at it from its religious history, because that's what ultimately shaped it, whether there's a mountain of historical evidence for it or not. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, during King David's roughly 33-year reign over the Kingdom of Israel, there was one major thing he did that contributed to making Jerusalem holy: bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. The Ark of the Covenant was the most revered object in Judaism, described in the Hebrew Bible as
the golden altar of incense and the gold covered ark of the covenant. This ark contained the gold jar of manna, like power, like for magic. Aaron's staff had budded, and the stone tablets of the covenant.
Gold-plated wooden chest containing the 10 Commandments, Aaron's rod, and a pot of manna, while also symbolizing God's presence.
So it's like a video game. It was like a gold chest filled with mana power and a magical staff.
It's extremely sacred, to say the least. And bringing it to Jerusalem from the town of Kiryat Jearim helped establish it as the holy city and united the nation under its new spiritual and political center. The next major event came with David's son and successor, King Solomon, who reigned from approximately 970 to 931 BCE. He was the one who built the first temple, also known as Solomon's Temple. Technically, it was David who'd wanted to build the temple, but God had forbidden him from doing so for being too much of a man of war. So it was bestowed to Solomon. Nevertheless, David still provided all the
So God does not like
resources, detailed construction plans, and funding for it.
There's a limit on how much blood you can
the
shed.
site where Abraham was said to have prepared to sacrifice his son Isaac, the first temple became the permanent home of the Ark of the Covenant and the centerpiece of Israelite worship. Every major festival, such as Passover and Sukkot, required Israelites to travel to Jerusalem and offer sacrifices at the temple. It was the crowning achievement of Solomon's reign and solidified Jerusalem as the most sacred city on earth. Now, if we're to time jump quite a bit, the first temple was eventually destroyed in the siege of Jerusalem in 587 BCE by the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and much of the population was sent into exile in Babylon. But after 70 years, many of the Israelites were allowed to return and rebuild the temple after Cyrus the Great.
Okay, hold on.
Now,
I'm
if
lost.
we're to time jump quite a bit, the first temple was it was the crowning achievement of Solomon's reign and solidified
Solomon
Jerusalem
Temple.
as the most sacred city on
Okay.
earth. Now, if we're to time jump quite a bit, the first temple was eventually
forward.
destroyed in the siege of Jerusalem in 587
So Solomon's first temple was destroyed.
BCE by the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and much of the population was sent into exile in Babylon. But after 70 years, many of the Israelites were allowed to return and rebuild the temple.
Right.
Founding king of the Achaemenid Empire,
'Cause he said they're
proclaimed the
rebuilding it.
Edict of Cyrus in 516 BCE.
Okay.
500 years later, in 20 BCE, King
Israel. I should go look up a picture of Israel to see like all of what it covers.
Herod the
Should we do
Great,
that?
a Roman Jewish client king, renovated it, rebuilding it much larger and artificially expanding the platform on which it stood by almost double. As you can tell by the dates, we're now getting into the timeline of what makes Jerusalem holy to Christianity. Not to say that everything I just said before isn't, because after all, both religions do believe in the Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament in Christianity terms, besides for a few differences. It was shortly after this that Jesus' life on earth began.
Did you
Israel's
know
geography.
Israel is one of the few countries in the world that entered the 21st century with more trees than it had 100 years earlier? Pretty
is not what I was
unusual
looking
for a
for.
country in the Middle East. This is Israel,
So this tiny little thing is Israel?
a nation that's 75 times smaller than Iran, yet plays a massive role on the global stage. At Israel's narrowest point near Tel Aviv, the country is only about 15 kilometers wide. That's so narrow, you could literally walk across the country in 3 to 4 hours. Despite its small size, Israel is perfectly placed for trade and culture connecting continents.
Oh.
It's in the Middle East, bordered by Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, and the Mediterranean Sea. Plus, through the port of Eilat, it even has access to the Red Sea, linking it directly to Europe, Asia, and Africa. But geography is a double-edged sword. Israel's central location makes it important for trade, but it's also surrounded by conflict zones, shaping its history and politics.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's like you got the good house on the block, but your neighbors are always fucking starting in their domestics, and the husband's always beating his wife, and she's always screaming out and running outside with her flip-flops on, like in a hand, like, leave me alone. Oh, okay. And then Israel is just kind of there like, Jesus Christ. Like, you know, they got the music playing at 12 a.m. Israel's just trying to go to sleep. Is that
For
it?
decades. Now, let's look at the landscapes.
That's
Israel
crazy.
packs an incredible variety
Dang, so the U.S., we're kind of lucky, right? Well, we are surrounded by Mexico and Canada, but they don't really be getting into no trouble. So.
into a tiny space. Desert,
Well, Mexico, I mean, well, let's not say that. They're going crazy right now.
mountains, fertile valleys,
But-
and coastlines, all in one country. In fact, in just a few hours' drive, you could go from snowy mountains to sunny beaches, and
Oh, video idea. I got to write this down, but I don't want to leave. Okay, I need to write it down on paper. Great video idea. We're going to go, I don't know if you guys know Ludwig. He's a YouTuber, but he did a series called Tip to Tip where he basically got a motorcycle and went from one end of Japan all the way to the other. We're going to do that with Israel. We're going to go tip to tip Israel. And then we're going to go width to width So we're gonna find the most narrow part right there, like you said. That's 4 kilometers. That would take 4 hours to walk, and we're gonna walk across Israel. That's a banger idea.
And to dry desert dunes. So while Israel may be small on the map, its geography gives it both unique opportunities and unique challenges. Did you know Israel is one of the few countries in the world that entered the 21st century with more
Hope our
true
video's still
overlapped
there.
with the existence of the Second Temple. In fact, he spent significant amounts of time there, from preaching to even cleansing it of merchants. Nearly all of the most significant events of Jesus' life were in Jerusalem. The Last Supper and First Pentecost took place in the cenacle of Mount Zion. He was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, at the foot of the Mount of Olives. He was crucified at a site called Golgotha, immediately outside Roman Jerusalem's walls. And while the location of his resurrection and ascension has been the subject of debate, what's for sure is that it was in Jerusalem. Same with where he's said to have been buried. Eventually, though, the Second Temple met the same fate as the first one, being destroyed in the siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE by the Roman Empire, when they finally burned the city down due to revolts. The reason all this is relevant is because today, the famous Western Wall, the holiest accessible site where those of the Jewish faith can pray, is actually the last remaining remnant of the Second Temple's expanded platform, if that makes sense. After Jerusalem was burned down, a new Roman colony was built on top of it.
It's like real-world Clash of Clans.
Aelia Capitolina. This marked a significant transformation of the city from a Jewish metropolis to a small pagan settlement dedicated to Roman paganism. The city was laid out on a classical Roman grid, a signature of Roman urban planning. It was these two lines specifically that created the modern divisions of Jerusalem: the Cardo Maximus from north to south, and Decumanus Maximus from east to west. This grid established the basic geometry of Jerusalem that all its later cities, Byzantine, Islamic, and Crusader, were built on. A few centuries later, Constantine the Great became the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity in 312 AD, and with it, slowly the Roman Empire became Christian too. Aelia Capitolina turned back into Jerusalem, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was built in 320.
Sorry, Constantine is like the zestiest name ever. If you get raided by someone named Constantine, like that's on you.
6 CE. It's
Constantine.
generally considered the holiest site in Christianity, built atop both Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified, and the tomb of Jesus, where he's said to have been buried. As a result, Christians gradually began settling around the northwest corner of the city to be near the places of Christ's life, clustering near the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and informally establishing what became the Christian Quarter. Its position on the complete opposite side of the Temple Mount also created a natural separation of sacred space, the old Jewish center to the east and the new Christian one to the west. What came next, believe it or not, was the Armenian Quarter, which to be fair is probably the one that's existence is most surprising. It's important to remember that Armenia was the first ever nation to adopt Christianity as its state religion, back in 301 AD, yet they were always pretty distinct from other Christians. They reject the belief in the nature of Christ being a true God and true man, resolved at the Council of Chalcedon, which Catholics and Eastern Orthodox adhere to. Regardless, Armenian monks still made their way to Jerusalem, for the same reasons as every other Christian, but they settled specifically around Mount Zion in the southwest, which already had a sacred reputation in Christianity.
People are so weird, bro. Like we're bombing each other because of religion. I'm sure there's other little things involved, but like if the basis of it, like all this conflict is because of religion. Like I bet people walk around like with like, oh, he's a Jew, I'm not going to talk to him type of mentality. Like,
because it was just outside the city's main activity while still being close to the Church.
It's like racism, low key,
of the Holy Sepulchre. Now we have the development of the third religion, Islam. Just like I said for Christianity, all the things we've talked about also play a part in Jerusalem's significance to Islam, because the religion also believes in the validity of the Hebrew Bible. Well, kinda. See, Islam accepts the Torah given to Moses as a true revelation from God, as seen here. But what it doesn't accept is the current Torah.
You cannot flash that. Who reads that fast?
See, Islam accepts the Torah given to Moses,
by which the prophets who submitted themselves to Allah made judgments for Jews, so too did the rabbis, and scholars judge according to Allah's book. Oh my god, I forgot that this isn't like regular English, so it's going to translate weird. With which they were entrusted and of which they were made keepers. So do not fear the people, fear the mal, nor trade my revelations for a fleeting, nor trade my fear. Do not fear the people, fear me. Also, don't trade my revelations for a fleeting gain. Don't trade my gifts to you and my revelations to you. Don't try and sell my knowledge. Don't try and profit off like the word of the Lord. Like, that's weird, bro. And those who do not judge by what Allah has revealed are truly the disbelievers. I did see a snippet though where in Israel somewhere, I don't know where it was, but they were like, it was like where Jesus was or something, and they were mad. There was mad gift shops around.
As a true revelation from God, as seen here. But what it doesn't accept is the current Torah in the Hebrew Bible
do
as
what you gotta
perfectly
do.
Preserved. Instead,
the opportunity presents
corrupted.
itself.
Same with the Book of Psalms. There's some overlap between Christianity too, like Jesus and John the Baptist are seen as prophets in Islam, for example. But anyways, Islam originated in the 7th century on the Arabian Peninsula, specifically in the city of Mecca. But given this video is about its relation to Jerusalem, instead it's seen as corrupted. Same with the Book of Psalms. But what it doesn't accept is the current Torah in the Hebrew Bible as perfectly preserved. Instead, it's seen as corrupted. Same with the Book of Psalms.
Okay, so it's like that new Christian thing where it's like they don't believe the Bible because they think, oh, well, like it's not the original Bible. It's been interpreted this way and that way and blah, 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 right? It's okay. And so the other religions don't look at Islam as, they look at it as like a new age.
There's some overlap between Christianity too, like Jesus and John the Baptist are seen as prophets in Islam, for example. But anyways, Islam originated in the 7th century on the Arabian Peninsula, specifically in the city of Mecca. But given this video is about its relation to Jerusalem, or should I say Al-Quds as it is in Arabic, we're only going to look at its significance to it. It's the third holiest city in Islam, behind Mecca and Medina. According to the Quran, Muhammad, regarded as the last of God's prophets, is said to have flown on the back of a mount called Burak from the Great Mosque of Mecca to Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, where he led other prophets in prayer. Al-Aqsa is the Temple Mount, by the way. From there, he ascended to heaven, met previous prophets, and ultimately stood in the presence of God, all within a single night in 621 CE. It's known as the Isra wal Miraj, or night journey in English. Technically, the Quran never mentions Jerusalem by any of its names, but in Surah Al-Isra, verse 1, it's widely interpreted as referring to it here as the farthest mosque. It was only 4 years after Muhammad's death in 632 AD that the first Islamic conquest of Jerusalem began, with the Rashidun Caliphate against the Byzantine Empire. Just a few decades after, the Al-Aqsa compound atop the Temple Mount was complete, which includes the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, among other things. It's the third holiest site in Islam altogether. Lastly, the spiritual importance of Jerusalem is further emphasized due to its status as the first Qibla, or direction of prayer. Islamic tradition holds that Muhammad led prayers towards Jerusalem until the 16th or 17th month after his migration from Mecca to Medina, when God directed him to instead turn towards the Kaaba in Mecca. It's also worth noting that between all these religions, there are massive amounts of overlap in the things which each find holy for different reasons. For example, the Western Wall, which is most holy in Judaism, is still holy in Islam as it's believed to be the site where the Prophet Muhammad tethered Burak before his ascension to heaven. Or the most famous example, and the one that's at the center of much political tension today, is the Temple Mount. While atop it sits the third holiest site in Islam, it itself is actually the holiest one in Judaism, as it's believed to be the spot where the Ark of the Covenant was kept in the first temple, the room known as the Holy of Holies. The rock itself, known as the foundation stone, is the stone in which the world was created from, and the spot in which Abraham almost ended up sacrificing his son in both religions. In Islam specifically, it's where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven from. So naturally, just like how Christians began settling around their most holy site, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the same thing happened with Muslims around Al-Aqsa, but the northeast...
Okay, so it's basically like Jesus was real. We all agree on that. but there's different little things we think about it, right? So it's like this group believes, and then different values they hold. So it's like, well, we value Jesus's dead body over everything else. That's what the Christians value, right? So it's like, we're going to post up over here on this corner of town, on a southeast corner, I say. No, I don't know. But like, we're going to post up over here next to his dead body, and that's where we're going to build our temple and our shrine and do our worshiping. And we believe that's the most important thing to treasure, or whatever, right? And then this other group is like, no, first of all, we don't even believe he died there. We think he died over here, and blah, 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 blah. But also, even though we do think he died over there, that's not where we're going to set our temple, because that's not the most important thing to us, is his dead body. The most important thing to us is the Bible and where it was held. And it was held in this building, the Temple Mount. And so we're going to post up over here, and then this is where our main religion headquarters are. And okay, so it's like, it's the same religion, the same series of events, but everybody has their own different little interpretations on it. It's like you're all in the same house, but it's like you just view things. They're like, yeah, they just view things differently. They're all looking at the same thing, though. It's all the same religion. It's all the Jesus was here on our land, but we all have different views on how it plays out, and we value different parts of it.
Area was specifically chosen due to geography. This is because the land there is flat and elevated, making it safe and easy to build on. It's lined with gates like Herod's Gate and Lion's Gate that connect to trade routes leading north and east, perfect for commerce. Meanwhile, the southeast was topographically unstable. It sits above the Kidron Valley and descends sharply, making it
Gates. So there's like legit walls to get inside these places.
erosion-prone. It was also the lowest and most exposed part of the city's defenses, making it difficult.
Like, what would that be? Like the equivalent of putting a gate around Texas, like a wall around Texas. Like every state would have its own wall
to
type of thing.
defend and hard to drain during
weird.
floods. To make matters worse, the nearby Dung Gate was small and mostly used for local access, not caravans or trade. Naturally, this meant the southeast was inhabited sporadically, and this is where we get to the most complex part of the video. I'm gonna be honest though, there is a lot of history.
It's like a Clash of Clans kind of setup. It's literally surrounded by walls, like barricaded. And you have probably archer towers over here. That's crazy.
To this. I mean, no city has been written about or fought over as much as Jerusalem. It's been conquered more than 40 times by countless caliphates and empires in history. So we're going to be time jumping quite a bit here. In 1187, Jerusalem was once again captured, this time by the Ayyubid Sultanate of King Saladin. At the time, both people of the Jewish and Muslim faith had been banned from the city under the Crusadim Kingdom of Jerusalem, a Latin Christian state established after the First Crusade in 1099. Saladin permitted them to return though, and Jewish people built small homes near the southern edge of the city, by the Western Wall, which was the closest they could get to the Temple Mount since Al-Aqsa stood atop it already. This marked the beginning of the first recognizable Jewish quarter. Small, impoverished, but stable. Not many people know this, but a few years later, in 1193, Saladin's son established a small Mughrabi quarter in the southeastern corner as well, dedicated to North African immigrants, but more on that later. It was only in the 1340s, under the Mamluk Sultanate, that the Armenians were permitted to build a wall around their quarter because they felt that they didn't pose a
Wait, so if you're an Armenian and you go walking around in the Jewish quarter, people are going to be like, yo, what you doing over here? Where you from? You going to get where you frommed? Is that like is that what they're on? So if you're Jewish and you go to the Islam quarters to get a coffee or something, they'll be like, hey, yo, where you from? Where you from, Holmes?
Threat, thus solidifying its existence. From there, that's kind of how things developed for centuries. Obviously, there wasn't a perfect coexistence, but it was tolerated.
That's kind of beautiful, though, you know what I mean? Like, just the walls and all this architecture. It's kind of beautiful. It is Clash of Clans-esque, but it's very pretty.
Even through the centuries of Ottoman control,
Look at that. That's gorgeous.
while there was a hierarchy in place, with Islam at the top and other religions facing heavy.
Like the way the dome just kind of stands out over everything, the Temple Mount. Look at this architecture. This is like, it's like Assassin's Creed. I just want to run all over the roofs. This is beautiful.
Taxation, tension, and even extortion, it was still relatively stable and the quarters continued to develop. But they only really became officialized in the mid-1840s. thanks to none other than the British. According to the book 9 Quarters of Jerusalem by Miles Teller, many European powers had thought the Ottoman Empire was about to collapse in the 1830s due to the Egyptian-Ottoman War and there being a change of sultans. As a result of this potential power vacuum, the first British consulate opened in Jerusalem in 1839, before eventually intervening in the war with many other European powers to stop the Ottoman Empire from collapsing, becoming what is known as the Oriental Crisis of 1840. The military intervention left a group of British officers stationed there to survey the terrain, Edward Aldrich and Julian Simmons. The map they produced in 1841 formed the structure of the cartography of the city for decades afterwards. And on this map, we can see the origin of the modern tradition of dividing Jerusalem into 4 quarters. But here's the thing, these 2 officers still may not have been the ones to have actually divided it. Because if you look below the frame of the map, you'll see the text, the writing added by the Reverend G. Williams and the Reverend Robert Willis. This is where it gets interesting. Let me explain. Reverend Willis, although he's credited, never actually went to Jerusalem. He lived in England as a Cambridge professor. But Reverend George Williams did. He spent 2 years in Jerusalem between 1841 and 1843 as a Protestant chaplain. His stay allowed him to walk the entire city and document it. After returning to England, he spent years compiling his notes into his 1849 memoir, The Holy City, Historical, Topographical, and Antiquarian Notices of Jerusalem, which used Aldrich and Simmons's map. No map had shown this divide before, and every map has shown it since. It was most likely him who created it. A few years later in 1865, Charles William Wilson, an officer in the British Army, was commissioned by the British Ordnance Survey to produce the first scientific mapping of Jerusalem using modern instruments. But when it came to its internal divisions, he simply adopted Williams' 4 quarters layout, effectively normalizing it since most of the world at that time followed Britain's maps. It's only stuck since. To this very day, that quartering system has still persisted, at least on paper. In reality, of course, populations across the city remain mixed in patterns that are neither fixed nor exclusive. It's not like people are constrained by them, but these are what they consist of today. There's the Jewish quarter, which is now about 29 acres and is home to about 2,000 people. It's been the point of intense change, especially when it was expanded over the Mughrabi quarter following the Six-Day War of 1967. The 2 most famous things in it are the Hurva Synagogue and, of course, the Western Wall.
A 6-day war. That's just a brawl.
Then there's the Armenian quarter.
That's just a scuffle.
Which is 31 acres and home to 2,500 people. It's developed around the 12th century Armenian Cathedral of St. James, which dominates the quarter. The monastery houses the Armenian Apostolic Church's Jerusalem Patriarchate, which is the de facto administrator of the quarter, and acts as a mini welfare state for the approximately 2,000 Armenian residents, though only about the de facto
So the way it works in these countries, right, is like these people run the country. It's the people at the top of the religion, right? That they look like KKK members. Bro, this looks like a cult. This looks terrifying. Tell me this does not look terrifying. Anyways, like they're the people that like run. They're like our government, right? It'd be like this homie is probably like Trump, right? Or are they more like the mayor? He'd be like a mayor type of thing, right? And they control their little quarter, so they control New York City type of thing. Right?
Administrator of the quarter and acts as a mini welfare state.
Or are each of these things like little countries? Is it more like 4 little countries? Right? I think feeling like they're all like tiny little countries, right? In one country.
For the approximately 2,000 Armenian residents, though only about 25% of them actually live in the quarter. It's also important to remember that although they're institutionally separate from Orthodox and Catholic Christians, the Armenians consider their quarter to be part of the Christian.
Bro, that looks so suspicious.
One. They just have a separate language and culture, really. Speaking of the Christian quarter, it's the second largest of the quarters at 46 acres, and the population varies by source, but is usually between 4,000 to 7,000. Obviously, the main site there is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, but there's also the last part of the Via Dolorosa, a street that's a sacred route for Christians, who believed it to be the path Jesus took on his crucifixion, the other half being in the Muslim quarter. Finally, we have just that, the Muslim quarter, the largest and most populated of the 4. It spans about 77 acres and has a population of 22,000 people. Now, if you add up all these acre amounts I just gave you, you'll notice it doesn't quite add up to the 222 acres that is the Old City of Jerusalem in total. That's because the Temple Mount isn't included traditionally. Some maps measure to the inner side of the city wall, while others are outer. And just the fact that these boundaries are just conceptually drawn means we're subtracting some acreage. But yes, to most, the Al-Aqsa compound is considered to be the main part of the Muslim quarter, along with the beginning of Via Dolorosa, Church of St. Anne, and right outside it near the Damascus Gate is the Garden Tomb, where many Protestant denominations actually believe
Damascus Gate, is that where the knives got their name? Damascus
Jesus is
knife?
buried. Today, the four quarters remain the simplest way to understand Jerusalem's old city, even if the reality is far more complex. They're relics of empire,
I'm trying to visit here and make a video. I got a great
and
idea.
cartography, divisions drawn long ago that still shape how millions
We're gonna walk all the way across Israel.
see the holiest square kilometer on Earth.
Israel's top 5 newest military innovations. Let's
Damn, I'm on my Britney shit. Oops, I hit again.